We have started to record the most recent session of MM2003, Reporting and Writing for the Mass Media for the fall semester. It is Thursday, November 18th, 2021. I have most of your websites available. We'll be looking at a variety of projects, including Assignment 18, the News App Critique. We also have some of you who are catching up with both of the opinion pieces, which is number 16, a local issue, or number 17, a state, national, or international issue. Once we get to the end of class, we're going to be doing some research, though some of you have already completed it, on assignment 19, which is the classmate blog critique. I should also indicate before we go online for the first time today that we will be meeting during Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. My flexible ability in terms of time is between 2:10 and 3:30. Sometimes we start later, sometimes sooner, but I want to make certain that we meet during Thanksgiving week and then the Tuesday and Thursday once we return. And we are also going to have, for your benefit, a class meeting during final exam week. And I wanted to show you the way this is going to be set up when you go to Ultra. I already have the class sessions set. What we're doing today, recording in progress, but we also have Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, the 30th of November, Tuesday, and December 2nd, which is Thursday, the last regularly scheduled meeting before final exam week. But I think it's important that we discuss your progress and look at websites for the final project on visual journalism. So I have set up an additional recording time during final exam week. It is Wednesday, December 8th, but at the same time. I realize many of you are going to be in the middle of final exam week, and it has never been a requirement for you to be here live, even though Alexis and to a lesser degree Kaylee in Oklahoma have always been here live during the fall semester. But for your benefit, I wanted to record one more time that you could find on the website, because I download all of these videos and place them on the website so we can check your progress on those final projects. And I wanted to mention for the record that during final exam week, you've got as much time as possible to put these together. So if you're still working on them, technically on Wednesday of finals week, that's acceptable. Even if you go home from campus and you're still editing and shaping them, that's acceptable, because I will usually wait until the weekend to post final grades on Campus Connect. More often than not, at the end of the semester, the university allows faculty the deadline of Monday after the semester has ended. So many of you are going to be leaving campus on Thursday afternoon. A final exam week commencement is on Friday. So that gives you the opportunity from your homes, from your computers, to go ahead and double check to make sure that everything on your blogs are exactly the way that you want them. So this is really just an opportunity to check to see where you are. And it also gives me the opportunity to do this. It's really important, in my opinion, that the work that you're doing in real time is chronicled. As you'll notice, whenever you take a look at all of these videos, whether on Ultra or on my website, the time for the classes gets a little bit longer. I want to spend as much time as possible looking at the sentence structure, looking at the aesthetics of the websites, the way in which you're writing the lead sentences, the interactivity that you're providing, the graphics, whether it be the edited screenshots or video clips or social media materials. I think all of that really helps for an immersive news blog, and something that I've talked about all semester. Whenever we click on your name among all of those classmates at the website, does it have the look, the feel, the gravitas of a professional news blog. Now, they're not going to be perfect. And as you know, sometimes I will be giving you positive, constructive criticism throughout. But you always have to, as a media professional, take that 30,000-foot perspective. Does this look like a professional news blog? It may not necessarily be 100% that way, but when I click on your phone or when I click on your computer, that's something that really needs to jump out, the overall professionalism. And that's why all the way through final exam week, you can not only tweak the final project itself on visual journalism, but go back and look at assignment 20, which is the wild card that will be due at the end of next week when we come back from Thanksgiving break, or assignment 19, which is the classmate news evaluation, taking a look at their blogs during the semester. All of that really does matter. Does assignment 1 through assignment 20 hang together as a separate entity? Because that's why we always wait until all 20 assignments are completed before I put a score on the blog. This is not and never has been a class where we go 200 points, 20 assignments, 20 assignments times 10 points. Doesn't work that way. It is one entity unto itself. Does it all hang together? Are the assignments numbered? Is it very clear in terms of design consistency that everything is going to work as a professional news work all the way through? And that's why it's always helpful to go back and look at what people have done in the past. And we'll be doing that later on. I wanted to go to Google Drive next and remind you of a couple of things. I've talked about this a lot, but it bears repeating as we get to the end of the term. Assignment 20, the wild card, can be anything that you want to discuss. And that is going to technically be due on Thursday of next week, or Thursday after we get back from Thanksgiving break. Realistically, there are going to be some of you who are catching up with the classmate blog critique. That's going to be due the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. When you come back from Thanksgiving, you've got more than enough time to go back and double check assignments 1 through 18. And with 19 and 20, ideally, everything is going to be completed before we get into finals week. But from assignment 1, defining news, all the way through the wild card, it's very essential that not only you take a deep dive and a realistic perspective on your own work, your own writing, your own reporting, your own editing, your own monitoring of the website, but also of your classmates. And that is the reason why all of these links matter, from Carlin all the way up to towards the top, including Finley. What are they doing? Well, you know from the videos that your classmates have been doing reasonably well. I talked about the checklist a little bit during a previous class session, but let's just go ahead for the record one final time during the semester and examine all of these items. I'll go through them relatively quickly. The content and the visuals of each of your news blogs. In terms of content, always consider, is the structure seamless, the headlines clickable, the reporting extensive, the writing descriptive, the language concise, the copy editing accurate, the fairness inclusive, the media research thorough, and the analytical perspective thoughtful. Now think about that for a moment. Not all of those particular elements may particularly be relevant to a news writing blog, but most of them are. And then in terms of the visuals, these are big. The design consistency uniform, the font size, color shading readable, the text image balance comparable. Is your interactivity recurrent? That's extremely important. Is your navigation optimized? Is your uniqueness dynamic? Whenever I click on the name, do I hear your voice? in the blog? Is your social engagement shareable? And most of the time it is. Google Blogger is very user-friendly. Is your mobile compatibility friendly, meaning is it easily readable and accessible on your phone? And then the aesthetic appeal. Is it creative? All of those elements matter. Now let's go up to content for a moment. Copy editing, is it accurate? Are your font sizes the same all the way through? Are there any issues that I've talked about during all of these course videos that you have gone back and addressed? Little things matter, like consistency, like paragraph structure. If there's something in the blog that just cries out and is a sore thumb, it has to be addressed or it will be reflected in the grade at the end of the semester. Sloppiness is not an option. So with all of that, whenever we come back for class on Tuesday of next week, and when we return on Tuesday after Thanksgiving break, I will take those two particular class periods to go into detail about the final project on visual journalism. I've talked about this in some of my face-to-face classes in Overstreet Hall, room 304. If any of you are really into new technology, such as TikTok, start to experiment. How could TikTok, from a visual perspective, be utilized for news? How many hundreds of millions of clicks are people getting around the world every day on TikTok? Are there new technologies? Let's say that you had access to a drone video camera and you wanted to experiment with a drone video for your final project. That would be okay too. I believe the nice thing about this class is that I allow you the creativity to go in any way that you want. It could be a data visualization. It could be a series of photographs. It could be an edited video on YouTube, as long as there is some type of hard or feature news component, which is why you've got all the way through final exam week to try to make certain that this is your baby. Because when we click on your name for this class on the blog, what is the first thing that people are going to see? The visual journalism final project, and then directly underneath in reverse chronological order, assignment 20, wildcard, assignment 19, classmate blog critique, assignment 18, news app critique. And then we get into the opinions, 17, 16, and it just keeps on going down to number 1, which was your definition of news. That's why you want to take the extra time and effort to make certain that the final project is something that you really want to discuss. And if you want to do something, again, that's either hard or featured news, that certainly is acceptable. Let's move on now to taking a look at your classmates' blogs and where their progress is as of just before Thanksgiving week. In reverse alphabetical order, Carlin starts us off today, and this is her news app critique. You'll recall from earlier in the week, on Tuesday, she already had this completed, and I said you can sit back and relax. You may wish to edit this if you want. What was I just talking about a moment ago? Just leave this on the screen. Does this look like a professional news blog? Yes, it does. And I haven't clicked on anything. All I'm doing is just soaking in the graphic from a first look. When you scroll into it, and her visual is big enough where it's not starting to pixelate, click on the read more. Notice the way that she's got this set up. 1, 2, 3 different graphics. And I like the way that she's got this prepared. If you're doing it properly, as we continue to move on in this course, you're going to weave your graphics into the narrative. And she's got plenty of air, plenty of space in between the text. So the graphics are going to be easily readable and are going to be incorporated into her analysis. Quote, goals are a big part of people's day, along with breaking bad habits and creating good ones. Now, you'll want to go back, Carlin, and check the spelling of people's. Done is one of the top rated goal tracking apps. Now, I would call this something that would be along the lines of a feature based news app, because goal tracking, I would say, is part of the information process. And as you're well aware, I don't mind stretching the boundaries of a definition. So if you look at news in a slightly different way, in the same manner in which I showed you the KTLA Los Angeles video on different types of apps in class on Tuesday, that's certainly acceptable. People like to see their success and be rewarded for it, so this app allows you to see your streak of each day that you complete your goal or work towards a good habit. So this is done, and you can see from bottom to top cupcakes, books read, mocha lattes, push-ups, and asleep by 11 a.m. Well, if you're eating a lot of cupcakes and you're drinking a lot of mocha lattes, it's probably a good idea to do some push-ups. Next, it tracks the streaks of your goals daily. Your only job is to complete your goal for the day to keep your streak alive, and there you can see her workout, or the way this was set up on the phone. This app also allows you to see your goals one graph at a time, so you can see if there is a pattern that shows a specific period of time where you tend to miss your goal. Again, THERE instead of THEIR. Or you could just change it to it if it was appropriate. So there you can see time for both meditate and workout. I discovered this app through this assignment, and I decided to download it myself to see all the ins and outs of how Done works. I personally would really enjoy this app and may even start using it to keep track of my own goals. I like how you can color customize the app to make it feel more personal. And then she wraps this up by saying, quote, I also think that it would really help when creating new habits and getting rid of the bad ones. So in terms of a news app, since I'm stretching the boundary of the critique, lifestyle is a big part of news in 2021. Lifestyle would fit as featured news. So this particular type of app could be used in terms of how lifestyle is affecting consumers. And that is the Done app. And again, this is what Carlin's website looks like. Whenever you scroll down, it goes through 15, 14, 13, 12. And as you know from class period the other day, if you click on more posts, this is what it looks like whenever you're online. And then you click on more posts again, and it goes all the way to number 1. Now let's take it from the bottom and move to the top in terms of design consistency. It's very easy to check all of her assignments because they're numbered. And some of you who are using a different format where you can see on the sidebar 1 through 20, the same thing is applicable. We're going to be focusing in reverse alphabetical order on websites that have been recently updated. Some of you who are still catching up, and we're going to be skipping the order alphabetically, but getting to you relatively soon. The next website we will examine, this is from Joanna. And as of today, she is looking, once we get past her introduction, to Google News for the news app critique. And this is where I always talk about the blogs being works in progress. So Joanna, what you want to do here is to make certain, and let me see if you can check it the same way, because I just highlighted all of this. On my screen, it is blue, and on the screen that you see, it actually is gray, but it's the same thing. You'll want to take this graphic and you want to make certain that the font style is consistent all the way through instead of being smaller and bigger. And then you've got a link to the actual article itself for Google News, and it is opening in this window. And that is a Yahoo News story, Dateline 24 hours ago. And here you've got the graphic that is provided. Now notice how she's got this set up with the Google News app. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different clips that are going to tie in specifically to the Google News app. And it also looks like this may be a work in progress, which is certainly acceptable. So let's go back up to the top of her blog with the makeup motif. And there is her profile on the left-hand side. So she's still working on the text of Google News that needs to be consistent in terms of font size. And then she's got all of these links to the articles and the screen grabs, including the Rittenhouse trial, that is Governor DeSantis of Florida, rising number of COVID cases coming from the CBS TV affiliate in Little Rock, and then this graphic, which is Arkansas approves COVID boosters for all adults. Notice what she's done. Again, with all of this particular data, giving her credibility in doing a realistic portrayal of the effectiveness of the Google News app. And then we come down to her opinion piece on the iPhone versus the Android. I suppose you could really call this an international issue because people use these all the time. And there is what appears to be an edited screenshot of Apple versus Android. And she's got a link from a website called freeadvice.com. And then we've got the best iPhone to buy in 2021 with a video. You'll remember on Tuesday, whenever we were examining the project from Opinion, I believe, let's scroll down a little bit. I think it was hers with the turkey, where the video with the turkey could go full screen. And I hated to do that to you just before Thanksgiving week on an afternoon, but it did look excellent whenever it was prepared on the Traeger grill. So here are all different kinds of videos. In conclusion, being that our phones have become an essential part of our everyday lives, I truly think everyone needs a cellular device to stay up to date versus out of date as well. It is also my opinion that we should all stay current and up to date with the latest technology. That way we will not be left behind. So Joanna, I know it's your voice because you're writing some of this in first person, which is appropriate for an opinion. But again, you'll want to be very careful in making certain that when you go into the presets on Google Blogger, that anything that you do here with the text is consistent in terms of size. This video breaks down the comparison of the phones I have mentioned in great detail. And I must brag about this being the best phone on the market, the 13 Pro Max. But all of this, and then she's got another link from a website for Androids. But as you can see, she had her news app critique, the opinion, and let's scroll down. I think, like I said, there's the turkey, and there's the guy from, I believe it's the Meat Church in Texas. And we'll scroll to the top. But it's nice to see the creativity that all of you bring to the blogs. And this is a perfect example of what I was saying at the outset, that every blog, even through final exam week, before grades are officially turned in on Campus Connect after all of you have gone home, these are all going to be works in progress, but just go back in and double check everything from a design consistency perspective. One of the reasons the checklist for media presentations, position paper websites, and blogs was placed on the screen a few minutes ago. We've examined Carlin and Joanna, and next is going to be Lauren's website, and she is on the state, national, or international opinion, which is assignment 17. She's looking at it from an international perspective. And she's looking at international student numbers declining in the United States. Now, this really happened more during the previous presidential administration, but because of the pandemic, it can be challenging for students to either come to the United States or leave, despite the fact, as you know from a student project over the past week, that with travel restrictions easing, particularly with those who have been fully vaccinated around the world, the international student numbers at least from the United States, will start to improve. I like what Lauren does in the respect that you'll remember the other day she had a story from the New York Times with the link directly underneath. That was from Australia. Here is the link to the story that opens in the same window. This is US News and World Report on how declining international student numbers are starting to stabilize. As we get beyond the pandemic, they'll probably get back to normal in a relatively quick period of time. Quote, after a sharp drop in international students in the US in 2020, early numbers for fall 2021 point to a rebound. And this is Dateline Monday of this week. And here is the story. Let's lose the advertisement. The lead in the US News and World Report story, quote, the coronavirus pandemic forced normal life to an abrupt halt in 2020, disrupting entire industries and national economies, as we did with Lauren's source from the New York Times in Australia. The interactivity within the professional news story. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and as you can see, this is a relatively complex story, but the different colors within the text indicate interactivity, which gives you much more credibility as an interactive media professional. Notice how she rewrites the lead sentence from the US News story, quote, in 2020, the pandemic interrupted everyone's lives from industries to economics. Travel became scarce and sadly for international students, education was put on pause. Look at interactivity. According to statistics from Open Doors, we'll get back to that in a moment, the total amount of international students at US universities dropped by 15% from 2019-2020 to 2020-2021. Those of you who were on the SAU campus know that it was Friday the 13th of March 2020, the last day that we had classes as we knew them, maskless, before we had an extra week off before spring break, and then everything went online. Within that year, new international students enrolling in U.S. universities decreased by 45.6%. So she provides not only a U.S. News link, but to something called Open Doors, which is looking at the numbers on international students and scholars who are studying abroad. And there's all different kinds of material, apparently, that you can find when you're at this website. Again, the nice part about this, with many of the Google Blogger templates, is just like this with Common App, the links open within the window. You never know. Whenever you're just scrolling through students' websites, there may be something along the lines of research for a project here or somewhere else that you can use. That's the photograph that you saw from the US News story that she incorporated into the story. I don't know if she just saves the graphic and then uploads it in, or whether she is taking a screenshot, edits it, and puts it up. I think travel is the greatest form of education. Hearing that the students were having a hard time getting to study abroad was disheartening to me. There is a lot you can learn from immersing yourself in another culture. I am glad to hear that kids are getting back out there and that the pandemic hasn't affected their opinion on traveling to other countries. It is nice to hear that people are still curious about the world and that the energy America gave off during the pandemic hasn't scared them away. I told you in class earlier this week that it doesn't bother me if you put contractions into your stories. This is not similar to or analogous to something that you would do for an English project where the terminology would not necessarily, unless it was in a quotation, would be any type of contraction. But that is relatively short, succinct, to the point. So she's got 1, 2, 3, different bits of interactivity in 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. That's enough. Don't feel like you have to make everything War and Peace. Make your points and move on. And as we did with one of the earlier websites, let's just take a quick look at what her entire blog looks like before Thanksgiving break. A format that is very similar to Carlin. Everything all the way down to number 1 with the design consistency. Very easy to understand. And there is opinion on top. So that brings us to the next website in roughly reverse chronological order. We will go to Alexis next. And this is what she is examining for the news blog critique. And what I'll do here, Alexis, is to go ahead and click on this. And you're looking at BuzzFeed. So why did you choose BuzzFeed for this particular project?
So I'm going to be quite honest. I had a hard time with this assignment. This was probably the hardest assignment for me, and I don't really know why, but it was. So I was trying to think of a news site that I've already used. I actually haven't used BuzzFeed News though for their news. I've mainly gone to them for their quizzes. BuzzFeed, and they also have a YouTube channel, but they do have a news as well. And I had a couple of critiques, like criticism, but then I also have some praise on them. So I wanted to do so I Googled what critique was before I even started this, because I didn't want it to just be like a praise site or just be just criticism. So I Googled, and it was just a definition of all of it. So you have to look at the good and the bad. So that's what I did.
Right.
And some of it I talked about how they are biased. Okay, I'm going to briefly say that. Every news station is biased though, but I felt like I needed to mention that just because that was one of my opinions. Another of my opinion was they don't have very hard-hitting news. Most of their stuff has to do with celebrity or pop culture, which I understand that is feature news, but I just wasn't as into it as I would have been if it was more hard-hitting. I also didn't like the setup of some of their. I liked their overall website, but they had different tabs instead of just a news section. They had different tabs, like they had a LGBTQ tab, like a different interest, and I just wanted them to have an overall news tab. But overall, it's a good app. I really do like it. I actually downloaded the app. I was a little bit irritated at the beginning whenever I did download the app, because I've only used their website. But whenever I downloaded the app, it asked if I liked it or not, and I didn't know if I liked it because I've never used it. So I was kind of mad. But I did put that in there. So yeah, that was my overall critique.
And by the way, what I'm doing is you were talking about scrolling through and the different kinds of news that it features. And you indicated, and I don't go to this a lot, I can tell you that for the record, for all of you guys, what I usually do, Alexis, is on my Android, the two basic news apps that I use are the Washington Post and the New York Times. I have digital subscriptions to each. But you are correct. Whenever you go through this, it does seem to have more of a focus on feature news, even though there is some hard news, because this just broke today before we started to record. Oklahoma's governor commuted the death sentence of Julius Jones 4 hours before his scheduled execution. But there's also a lot of feature news or entertainment news. Tom Holland and Zendaya just opened up about their relationship for the first time. Many of us would look at this and think, who cares? Britney Spears is free from her conservatorship. Now, that is hard news. It just also happens to be feature, pop culture, entertainment, all of those as well. But then you've got R. Kelly, the gentleman who was censured for sending out an anime clip. And here you've got Astroworld victims.
I
And then
love
you,
pop culture, but
right,
whenever I think of news, I don't think of pop culture. Like, I'm probably more interested in pop culture than I am news, but I
right.
don't consider pop culture celebrity news being news. And I know it is, but I just, in my mind, I don't think of it being news.
Well, BuzzFeed, as someone who does not use it all that often, it seems to be somewhat of a mishmash and not necessarily a lot of organization by topic. It looks like there's just a lot of stories here, but not necessarily. I think most of us would think national news, international news. Just think about the assignments that you do in this class. They are specifically categorized. And here it just looks like they're all thrown together without a lot of thought, because you've got some hard news stories and then you've got culture. Now let's scroll back to the top. You've got Adele, you've got Kanye, you've got all different white supremacists, and then it just seems like there's not a lot of consistency to how this is as to how this is set up. So I would agree with you in your analytical perspective, because it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of thought in how you do this, because you're well aware usually whenever you have something up here at the top, it's going to be broken down a little bit differently than Alec Baldwin Rittenhouse trial, and then red, really we're going to have a section totally for that. But notice that during your evaluation, we just looked at BuzzFeed News. The first thing that we did actually was go to BuzzFeed.com, which looks a little bit different, because when you're at the BuzzFeed website, right here, notice that up on top, there is a BuzzFeed news link, and that brings us to what we were examining right at the top. You've got that which we talked about, Young Dolph, which ironically 2 years ago was actually a media presentation for image counseling in my public relations class. So let's go ahead one more time and look at your news app critique from top to bottom. And the bottom line on this is that it needs some work, or it's something you wouldn't necessarily use a lot, correct? And then the
Yes, I
final,
use them all the time for their quizzes, but I don't ever use them for their news. I just wish they did better. I expected a lot from them just because I watch their content. Like Tasty is part of them, so I use like their merchandise, like for cooking. I just really expected more, but the overall not bad.
and by the way, remember, and we saw that it was right up there on the banner near news, and you did see that Tasty link. But let me go ahead and quote this, because this is relevant for all of you. Quote, overall, I don't hate this app, but I wish the app would give me more, because I have used this app for many years for their quizzes. I really wanted them to test well other news too. I really like their brand, but I do have high standards for them and would like for them to do better. And while you were talking about this, the term that I finally came up with was disorganized. Whenever you're scrolling through that news, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of organization into how stuff is thrown together. And that's what is rather jarring for most of us who are a little bit more organized ourselves in putting data together. And if I wanted to send this out, or if she wanted to send it out to her friends, there, of course, is the social media outlet. And one more time, she's got 3 different graphics that tie into the concept of BuzzFeed. There's no doubt that it's made a significant impact on popular culture, but the news website and certainly the news app apparently needs some more work. Okay, so are we good?
Yes, sir.
All right. And by the way, Alexis, you can go ahead and close your mic, but there is one thing that I would ask you to do is right up here on top of the website, if you could please put a space in between the 3 and the dash. So it's MM2003 space dash space. That would be nice from the standpoint of design on top. Now you don't have to do it down here on the bottom, but right up here on top, I want everybody's website to look the same, where it's either space dash space or space slash space. When you look at her website from top to bottom, there's always design consistency from 18 all the way down to 1. And we talked about this before, that whenever we get to more posts, any of those smaller photos are not going to be overly pixelated. This one probably is because it's a little bit smaller for the Hometown Hard News. But when you're examining all of these, does it have the look and feel of a professional blog and all the way through? And thank you, Alexis, for doing that so quickly. Just, it's okay. Now, again, down here, don't worry about it. That's not a problem. As long as there is consistency, the consistency with the numbering. So you've got hashtag next to all of the numbers other than number 16. And that's my editing function. Never giving anybody a good-natured hard time. It's just one of those things where everything needs to be consistent all the way through. And most of you are going to be doing that during the semester anyway. What we've had so far in the websites from Carlin, who's at the News App Critique, from Duana, who is currently editing her News App Critique, Lauren with Opinion, and Alexis with her News App Critique, is that we've got different perspectives, but they're all relevant in terms of their newsworthiness. And that brings us to the website for Taylor, who was already on Classmate Blog Critique. And as I indicated, I'll be talking about these on Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. If some of you are still a little bit behind, then you can go ahead and take all Thanksgiving week when you have some free time to make sure that you try to get caught up as much as possible by the next time that we meet after Thanksgiving, the following Tuesday, which will be the last day of November. We'll save this until next week. Obviously, a shout out to Gwen, among others, because it doesn't have to be one person, it can be more than one. This is Taylor's News App Critique. And this is the Google News app with 3 different graphics. And let's examine the way that she is doing this. Let's pay attention now to her lead sentences, the sentence structure, the paragraph structure, because most of the time you're paragraphing, as you're well aware, with this particular format, your paragraphs are going to be shorter. And as we saw in particular with what Alexis did and what Lauren did immediately preceding her, the paragraphs don't necessarily have to be all that long, but as long as you're making a point, that's acceptable. The Google News app with a link is one of the top-rated news apps available today. The app is available on iOS and Android devices, as well as on the web. The app is offered as a free download, and there is an option for a premium subscription, which you're billed and paid for through your Google Play account. So here is a link to the Google News app, which opens in the same window. And this is what you see whenever you just do a quick scroll. And it's got on the left-hand side, top stories for you, following, saved searches, a special link to COVID. And you can see in Magnolia, it is 57 degrees. And every time I do that, I feel like I'm about to give you the AccuWeather forecast. So let's go back to her blog. While Google News is one of the hottest news apps on the market with a link, but why switch to your regular news apps for this one? And here is the link that she provides. The best 10 news apps, a link to a Mashable article to stay informed without all the doom scrolling. And I believe this is what I showed you the other day during class with a link. And it starts off with Apple and goes from there. So we did show it. Mashable is an excellent website. As many of you know, if you took MM3123 Internet Communication during the spring of this year. That brings us back to the News App Critique. What makes Google News stand out? The app offers full coverage of news stories for national and international updates. When you first open the app, you are led to the home page or the For You page. Now, I don't know whether or not you're using this particular sentence as a subhead, because the text size or the font is slightly bigger. Now, that may be part of this. I don't know. The Headlines tab allows you to choose topics between stories that are including U.S., world, business, technology, entertainment, sports. Other topics include science and health. Each specific subject gives numerous stories according to the topic, allowing readers to expand and pick topics based on personal preference. Notice the way that she's got this set up so far. We'll start at the top. She's got the 3 different graphics that you've already seen before. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different paragraphs that are relatively short. Inside the Google News Android version with a link, the same applications are available to the user. And there is how you get started. Now, I'm doing this as a public service because let's say Alexis, who is a fan of BuzzFeed, but not necessarily a fan of the BuzzFeed news section or the app, wants to switch to Google News. And if you want to customize your news feed, here's how you do it. It's always available because many of you are going to be getting your news online. And sometimes, as you're well aware, social media news, depending upon the site that you go to, is not really reporting. It's just information, and it may be biased. But if you know the source, and that's why I want all of you to have identifiable personas when we click on your names for those news blogs, having all of these different links, 1, 2, they change color, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that lends you credibility as a media professional. During this analysis of the news app, I downloaded the app myself, and since it has been on my phone, notifications have promptly appeared from different publications such as the New York Times, CNN, KWTX, and Daily Mail. Now, KWTX sounds like a radio or television station, so let's check this out. This would be Temple, Texas, apparently. Channel 10, KWTX, or a television station serving Temple, Texas, among other markets. Temple police arrest woman seen in video throwing soup at restaurant employee's face. And this is Dateline 24 hours ago. Police arrested this woman, the woman accused of throwing soup in the face of a restaurant employee during a disturbance at a restaurant in the city, causing bodily injury, and it's a relatively short story. Now let's start here. You can see this is a television news station. I guess this is in Waco. So Temple, of course, would be part of the Waco market. So this is a Waco television news station. And notice how the television station staff is writing the story. Look at the sentence structure. This is really important. If you want to get an idea of how to write professionally, it's always helpful, especially online, to go to professional news sources, radio, television, newspaper, online. How are they writing their story? Lead paragraph, 1 sentence. Second paragraph, 2 short sentences. Next paragraph, it is quoting the deputy police chief, and then there is a second quote that is a paragraph unto itself. Paragraph is 1 short sentence, another short sentence, another sentence, another sentence, and then you've got 1, 2. So this story has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 paragraphs, but it's a relatively short word count. Why? It's easily readable, it's easily understandable, all of the facts are available, and at the top, similar to what you do, you've got video of the store, and then you've got the arrest photo of the alleged perpetrator of the soup throwing deed in Temple, Texas. Now, let's scroll back to her blog. She also includes CNN and the Daily Mail. In my following tab, I was able to choose my favorite news apps. This app is an unexpected and nice addition to the assortment of applications available on my phone, and I strongly suggest anyone interested in current events to download this app on their iPhone, Android, or even their laptop. So that is the news app critique from Taylor, who is a fan of Google News. And this is what her website looks like from top to bottom, looking at design consistency. Clicking on more posts or older posts, depending upon the style that you use. Everything that she has done at this point during the semester. And get used to this, because especially whenever I have the special session during final exam week on that Wednesday, I want to, for the record, do the same thing with everyone's blog, not necessarily going into a hard and fast dialogue on what everyone has done, but just showing everyone, for the record, on a course video, where at the end of the term you stand. And I'll come back to it one more time. Does it have the look and feel of a professional news blog? And that's where the editing comes in. Yes, this is a reporting and writing course, but editing is something that you're going to be working on all the time. I do as a professor. I'll give you a different type of skills to ideally maximize your relevance as a reporter, writer, but don't ever underestimate the importance of editing. The next website we are going to examine is Haley. I was getting a notification on my computer that there might be a problem with my connection, but I never lost the connection. So hopefully things are still relatively clear. And that would not be my internet service provider. That would be from Blackboard. As you're well aware, there have been some issues with Blackboard during the semester, especially, speaking of apps, the Blackboard app. This is, now remember, with this, you can click either here or here. And this is Haley's news app critique. Quote, news apps are major essential to the phones of many people. These applications are able to give users insight to local, state, and international news and weather. Before we go any further, you'll notice that she's got two graphics that talk about news apps. And what I like about Haley's writing style is her paragraphs are a little bit longer, but the graphics that she uses, either specifically or tangentially, tie into the narrative of her writing approach. Sometimes people are going to write slightly longer, slightly shorter, but depending upon your particular writing style, it may work. This has created a new avenue for streaming services and the company as a whole. And then we move on to the next paragraph. It looks like you missed a period right there. Then we get into, quote, Amazon has developed many extensions that have helped the company grow over the years. One of those extensions include the Fire TV news app. And of course, many people at home have the Amazon Fire Stick, the Amazon Fire device, and they began to include local news, as you can see here, in 2020, and have rapidly grown since. And then she's got a link to the Verge website, Amazon Fire's TV news app, free local coverage. And that is Dateline October. And that's what it looks like when you click on a screen and see different materials available through Amazon Fire and the news app. And you can click on that story and read it if you so wish. But it's very helpful to provide that for any type of source credibility on the part of Haley, the reporter. We've got the link and you can click on it. Ironically, depending upon who the student is and what the format is, in Taylor's case, whenever you click on the links, they change color. In this case, I don't think they do. The update to the app, as you saw from the link, includes 259 local stations in many different locations. And then at the end of the sentence, quote, the company informed its users that no extra work is needed to access the news from these new channels. They will automatically be available on the app post-update. A full list can be viewed at the Amazon Fire TV blog. And this is a link, Dateline October 20 from the Amazon Fire TV blog website. With so much going on in the world, we know how important it is to stay updated on all the news happening where you live. Now, why is this important? Because if you're involved in Amazon Fire TV, the archive, Alexa, tips and tricks, what to watch, product news, something like this, because you're paying a lot of money for Amazon Fire TV, it provides a news service which is going to be relevant and localized depending upon where you are. It's the same graphic we were looking at from a different link a moment ago, and how you can use it on Fire TV. Amazon recently announced that Fire TV will be expanding to include more channels on its news app. And then, of course, there is the Amazon Fire TV blog. Here's her final paragraph quote. In totality, it concludes by saying, in today's times, it is a necessity to stay informed and in touch with what is going on around you. Many companies are developing apps such as the one listed above to assist with that. This is extremely helpful to those who have chosen to use only streaming devices as their way of television. It is enjoyable for me to read your writing during recorded class sessions because it gives me an idea of your voice, the way in which your reporting, writing, editing is being worked on during the term. Most of the time in this class, your writing style is going to be much cleaner, more concise, more succinct, more factually based. The term that I was trying to use, and I think I juxtaposed two words, but I wanted to say succinct at the end of the semester. And as you well know, as I did earlier with the blog from Alexis, if I wanted to share this, or if you did, it is easily shareable. Going back to what we talked about at the outset with the updated media checklist for position paper websites, media presentations, and blogs. So Haley, that is really well done. And as we have been doing with everyone so far, with assignments 17 or 18, what does her professional news blog look like when we get to older posts, going down to number 1? And I think it's easy to say for most of you, and certainly Haley falls into this category, that it has the look, the feel, and most importantly, it reads like a professional news blog. So that brings us now in reverse chronological order. I said that in class the other day. Whenever I say reverse chronological order, I'm thinking the numbers, or of course, I mean reverse alphabetical order. We go from Haley to Kaylee, and she is taking me up on the advice to experiment with formats and to experiment with blogs. This is what her website looks like. So she's been experimenting, and right now she is at the news app critique. News apps continuously evolve in all app stores located on our smartphones, tablets, and computers. Whether it's the Apple Store or Google Play, there are thousands of applications available for any user's needs. The right app that suits all of your needs is now available. And she provides a video, and I don't hear any music. Let me start this over again. And as we did with the post dealing with the turkey during our last class session from Juana, let's make this widescreen and play it before. As for me, I have several news alerts that target my notifications on my phone daily. For some, I only receive a select amount of alerts, whereas some I've signaled for particular articles that ask my phone to sound. Let's go ahead and play this and check this out. Big screen. And I took the audio off. I thought there might be some kind of audio signal. And as you can see, 2 more seconds. And that's what hers looks like whenever you scroll. And inclusion of that particular video, Kaylee, is very effective because it gives everyone the idea that in this particular case, it really works whenever you're accessing it on your phone. And there is a generic graphic that she has which accompanies it. So news alerts, let's go ahead and play that one more time. She has lots of different news apps, as you can see. And especially in her case, or anybody who had these particular apps, including Google News, which we just saw, and that includes BBC, Reuters, USA Today, just a variety of places that you can go. Washington Post, which is what I have. So Kaylee, that was really well done. Now, I don't know if that's a work in progress, but this is where she has changed her format, and this is what's trending on social media. I don't know if we looked at that, the life of a cowgirl. We may have looked at that briefly. It looks like she is tweaking that, but we'll leave it right there for the time being. As you're well aware, I think going back and forth and looking at a variety of different stylistic approaches to try to find whatever your voice is, and then the meat and potatoes of all of that is going to be how you write the particular stories. That leads us next to the website for Gwen. And I'm getting a little bit of a tape delay whenever I'm getting something up on the screen. So I have Gwen's website available for the news app critique. Okay, I'm getting connectivity issues, but it's not on my end. This is Blackboard. So this is where some of you have indicated with the Blackboard app, there have been some issues. But this is what Gwen's website looks like, and her news app critique for number 18. And let's first of all put up, and that looks like a screenshot, is that for how you can, quote, personalize your news for selected topics. And here's what she has to say. Quote, news apps aren't necessarily how I keep myself updated on the news. However, I will generally get notifications from the Apple News app on my iPhone. If you're a news professional, you're probably going to have a lot of news apps, which is why I think it's appropriate and necessary for a news app critique to be included within the context of the 20 assignments for the news blog in this course. Because news apps aren't my primary source of news, I wanted to critique what I could possibly use from now on. To choose, I went online to research some recommended and unbiased news apps. I kept coming across the app Newsbreak and decided to give it a look. After downloading News app on my phone, I began looking at the app's ratings and reviews. It's rated 4.5 out of 5. I determined that the reviews would not be conclusive, so I decided it was time for me to choose for myself if the app was one I could use. And notice it's gotten tons of ratings, almost 700,000. When you initially get on the app, you are prompted to enter your zip code to receive your local news. The app is tries to give you news from your location. However, the app has headlines from almost every news platform. And then she gets into analyzing its organizational structure. It is one of my favorite aspects of the app. You are given multiple topics to choose from. Now think of this before I conclude the sentence. We had live Alexis talking about the fact that while she likes BuzzFeed, she was not a fan of the BuzzFeed News app because it felt, as I said at the time, disorganized. Now, what is part of Gwen's lead sentence? Newsbreak is very organized. The topics include for you, local, COVID, headlines, entertainment, and more. Something else I really like about the app is that you can personalize what topics you choose from, and this looks like an edited screenshot. Newsbreak also gives you an option to follow different news outlets. I was recommended local outlets as well as other popular outlets that other Newsbreak users follow. And then here's another one. So she's what appears to be a video, and let's check it out. Oh, this is a screenshot. No, it's not a screenshot. So this is very similar to what we just saw a moment ago from Kaylee. I clicked on that link and nothing happened. So let's go ahead and make this widescreen as well and check this out. It's a 14-second video scroll as opposed to Kaylee, who had a 25-second scroll. And as with Kaylee, I will play this twice. And as you can tell, this is literally hot off the press because Julius Jones, the Oklahoma case where his execution was stayed by the governor, so it will not be taking place today. Let's click on this one more time. So depending upon what your preferences are, as she indicated, you're going to have more or less in the feed. Lastly, when choosing an article to read, the app will let you choose to view it like it is on the web or read it from a simple view. For example, when looking at an article written by Magnolia Reporter, I can view the article precisely as I would there on its website. I especially like this feature because I can look at other news outlets' platforms without exiting the app. Same thing here. This is Magnolia Reporter, but we'll make it full screen. And remember, Darian Ford led the Magnolia Panthers to a state championship, and because of COVID, I think they had to share another state championship. And that's an example of what she was talking about with reading the story. After critiquing Newsbreak, I recommend that others download the app themselves to determine if they would like to use it. I believe the app is trustworthy and a great source of news, especially if you want to receive news locally, nationally, and internationally. I enjoyed looking at Newsbreak, and I will continue to use it to receive news updates and information. As you well know, you or I can share it to any source. So what did Gwen do here? She provided a solid analytical perspective that includes 1, 2 different videos and then 3 different graphics or screenshots. So that's her news app critique. And her website in reverse order from 18 to 1. Notice that everything is pretty much set up exactly the same way. Nothing's calling attention to itself in terms of a lack of organization or a lack of design consistency. Going to defining news, number 1. And that is her website. And let me refresh the website for Finley, and we will put hers up on the screen. She currently is at assignment 17. So her opinion for state, national, or international news includes sea cows in trouble with 1, 2, he's cute, 3, 4 different story-related graphics or photos. Quote, having been to Florida many times, I have firsthand experiences much of the beauty of Florida has to offer. From the gorgeous weather to the picture-perfect beaches, Florida will forever be one of the most beautiful places I have ever traveled. And that she gets into the story about how apparently 1,000 sea cows or manatees have died in Florida in 2021. And then you can see, even though manatees are recorded to be the ones most affected at this point in time, ecosystems are interconnected. So when one part of the system is at risk, it won't be long before other species start suffering. And then she talks about how she thinks it's vital for Florida to implement a ban on fertilizers and artificial nutrients near bodies of water. As someone who grew up on a farm, I can tell you that groundwater can potentially be affected by the runoffs from both insecticides and pesticides. Manatees' diet is seagrass, and there has been a loss of 58% of seagrass in the Earth's oceans over the past 11 years, something we wouldn't necessarily think about in the same way that students in other of my mass media or advanced public speaking courses have talked about the challenges that all sea creatures face when it comes to garbage in the oceans. Final paragraph quote, it's important, especially now for Florida, to place an emergency law into effect because the more manatees that die, the more risk there is for other pieces of their ecosystem to fall victim to what the manatee population is experiencing. So these are an attractive series of photos that have been provided by Finley in the opinion piece because it really does help visualize the challenges that are being faced. And this just in a short way, and we'll look at more of these later on, is what she's been looking at for other projects. And as we get into the end of Thanksgiving week, and as we go to the final part of the semester, we'll be taking a look at all of these websites in more detail from top to bottom. So that is the website from Finley, and that brings us to some of the other websites. Now, I'm not going to take a lot of time on these because obviously these are going to be works in progress, and I'm not going to put everyone's up, but I just wanted to show you that as of 2 weeks technically before our last official class session of fall 2021 before final exam week, what people's websites look like. Many of them. These are not all of the students in class. This is what Courtney's website looks like right now. The message I'm getting on the screen occasionally says, uh-oh, your connection is not necessarily as good as it could be, and it may affect the video quality. Hopefully it won't. But what I'm noticing is there is a lag time on Blackboard from the time that I try to make a graphic available to the time that is being shown on the recording. Now, this is where Courtney is right now. She is at the civics assignment. And you'll recall, Courtney, I told you the other day, I would like you for all of these projects, whether it is civics or listening posts or public records or any of the other projects, I would like you to make sure that these are numbered, to make sure that it's easy for anyone who is clicking on a website to know exactly what the number is for a particular project. And it's one of those things where I read one of your assignments the other day, possibly more than one, and I think you're on the right track with the creativity and the writing, but all of us are going to be working on the aesthetics of the blogs for the rest of the term. Let me go ahead and check the website for Seth because his is next. Again, these are quick looks. We'll get into more of these in detail as we are getting out of the Thanksgiving break. His opinion on the local issue is the Fort Smith Chamber of Commerce. And I believe this has been updated since the beginning of class because he was on entertainment or pop culture. And this one is looking at Yellowstone and the fact that it's now in its 4th season. It's very popular, but that's what his website looks like. Just showing you very briefly. And we go from Seth to the last one we will be looking at today is Jonathan, and he is at numeracy. You'll recall we talked about this project the other day. And he did confirm that the person in the middle is his mother, because he was talking about the importance of math. And as you can see, his mother is a math teacher. So these are the photos that he is including for the numeracy project. And that is what his website looks like as of right now. I want to go back to Google Drive for just a moment because with the upcoming assignments, we should reinforce the dates in which they are due. And there will be a little bit of flexibility when it comes to particularly assignment 19, because not all of the classmate blog critiques will be due on Tuesday of next week, or I should say will be completed by that time. So we've been looking at a number of the news app critiques. Assignment 19, classmate blog critique. I'm going to make the unofficial deadline Tuesday of next week before you leave for Thanksgiving. But if any of you are still catching up or have any type of Blackboard issues with the app, you can go ahead and complete it and try to get it done the day that we come back from the break. And the wild card can be anything that you want to discuss. Remember, the wild card is not the same as the final project. The wild card is rewriting a story. It can be any of these. It can be something else. I wouldn't make it an opinion, but if you wanted to get into another civic story or trending on social media or entertainment or popular culture or an international feature news story, any of those would be acceptable. And you can go to previous websites to see whether it be 2020 or 2019 or 2018, 2017, 2016, or 2015, what students were doing for their wildcard projects. Now, all of the assignments going back to 2015 may not necessarily, one, all be the same, or two, done in a particular order, but you can certainly get some ideas. I told you during class on Tuesday that both next week and the week after, we'll be looking at all different kinds of visual journalism projects. And that brings us to previous classmate blog critiques. And what I want to do with the classmate blog critique is give your classmates credit for the quality of their writing, their research, their interactivity, their creativity in putting together a news blog. You can look at this from the standpoint of one student. You can look at it from more than one. Taylor is already ahead of the game, and you can tell she's giving at least one a shout out for the quality of her blog. But let's quickly look at the last 4 times I taught this course and 4 examples of what students did at those times for their projects. This is fall of 2020, and this is the website of Carly Hale. Assignment 19, the classmate blog critique. She is looking at Legend Harris, and she includes 2 different screenshots, and these are relatively tight screenshots of what Legend is doing. And she explains, quote, in graphic design and probably category, it is always good to look at others' works. You learn what to not do and what techniques and designs execute well. Our blogs are no different. At first glimpse, viewers take in our websites from a design perspective. Do the design layouts look appealing? I've talked about aesthetics on many occasions, just today alone, in fact. Is the color scheme well chosen? Are the fonts readable and complementary? Many viewers go through these sets of questions subconsciously as they scroll through various websites and platforms. And she provides a link to Legend's blog, which opens in this window. So there is the final project. Now keep in mind, last year with the pandemic, we did not have a wild card. Visual journalism was the final project, but that's not the way it's being done this year. Let's just scroll down to 16, classmate blog critique, news app critique. Let's even click on what Legend did for her classmate blog critique. She is examining Sydney Waiter, who now works at a public relations in Little Rock, which is very impressive right after graduation. And Legend decided to take these right off of her phone. What does Sydney's website look like on the phone? Easily readable. Now let's scroll back. Now remember, the original website that we're examining from last year is Carly Hale, who is giving Legend a shout out. For this assignment, I chose to critique Legend Harris's blog. She uses a simple layout design. It's consistent, readable. She uses complementary fonts. One way that Legend can make her blog better is by putting the pictures beside the text and not always on top, but that's okay. Constructive, positive criticism is okay. And that's what she's doing here. And notice she even includes a video. So Carly is scrolling through Legend's blog, and as you've seen from a couple of your classmates today, those video screen rolls are included within the context of the assignment. Let's do that one more time. That is an 18-second clip. There's a little bit of pixelation, but that's not really a problem because you're taking this right off of a phone. We get to the end of it. Overall, Legend's blog is well put together and design is easy to read. It's no wonder she chose such a bright color for her design. She is very bold and loud, and her blog says a lot about her personality. That's what I want to hear. In the same way that Carly's blog shows a lot about her personality. That brings us back 2 years to the fall of 2019, and someone who did outstanding work and still does in my courses. She is a mass communication minor. She is probably going to go to grad school with an emphasis either in plant science or agriculture. This is Christy Glass. Christy uses the sidebar technique, and she's examining the blog of Katie Graham. And that's what Katie's website looks like from 2 years ago. Here is another graphic from Katie's website. That's a screenshot that's been edited onto Christy's blog from Katie. And this, like we saw from the previous review, this is what Katie's website looks like on Christy's phone. And are there any other graphics? I wanted to make sure that you saw all of these for the record. This is why it's really important to think not only from your computer perspective, but also from a phone. What is a blog going to look like on the phone? And here's another one. All of you are on your phones all the time, so it makes sense that you would want your own work to be easily readable. There's another one. So we have, and we haven't even talked about the text from bottom to top. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different graphics, either screenshots or something from a phone. So it is also cool to see the variation in blog styles that fit with each person's personality, and Katie's was one of the favorites of Christy. As soon as you open her blog, you see a heading that says Magnolia Katie in cute font. Katie's blog also looks good on a phone screen. Ding, 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 ding. I like Katie's blog because it is so creative and it always looks professional. I also like that she incorporated a heading into the front page of the blog. Katie also makes sure to provide plenty of links for the viewer. I really like that Katie is able to take a story and make it sound local. Notice what Christy is doing. She is setting up her narrative with all of these visuals. It is an immersive style, it is easily readable, and it is written in a conversational, breezy style. So we had actually, with Carly, a blog within a blog, because we had Carly looking at Legend, and then we had Legend looking at Sydney from last year, and then we had 2 years ago, Katie. I have 2 more that I want to show you, which is 2018. This is Suzanne Lanou, and she is examining Colby Clinton. For the record, you may hear dogs barking because across the road, I always leave my front door open. The dogs are barking at something. I don't know if it's the UPS man or not, but this is Suzanne evaluating Colby Clinton. I've read through the blogs written by my classmates, and she's trying not to be too critical, but she knows because Suzanne is a non-traditional student, she is a little bit older. She's had, quote, more than 30 years to hone my writing and typing skills. And then she includes material from Colby. There's one student that I think really writes well in his blog, Colby Clinton, and there is a link to his blog. So as we've seen with others, the link is readily available. He has a very concise method of writing that suits him well. I tend to write too much most of the time, so I admire anyone that can write in an informative way without too much verbiage. Most of the time, we're going to be writing short. And then she's not a fan of his blog theme, but that's okay. He chose a wide variety of topics about which to write, from movies to sports. I found his choices to be interesting and well-researched. Good job. And there is a graphic that is associated with Colby's blog that she used, Suzanne, as a screenshot. And there's another one. And for the record, there is a generic graphic. But that's what Suzanne wrote 3 years ago. And the final one that we're going to look at from 4 years ago, this is the website from someone who was recently accepted to graduate school at an institution in Texas. This is Jamia Evans. And Jamia is looking at Justice Seymour. And these are visuals that are associated with the blog from Justice. Jamia took 2 different screenshots, one from Justice Seymour and one from her classmate, Houston Taylor. So what does she have to say in this particular project? A blog that I enjoyed very much and envy belonged to Justice Seymour. His theme is simple. The font is sizable and easy to read. Each graphic is crisp and clear to see, and his writing style is inviting. Justice is an outstanding writer, graduated in the spring of 2019, identifiable style, and just look at that screenshot. Look at all the interactivity he provides. He's got yellow text on a black screen with basically greenish style interactivity. Very well done. I also found it a little harder to notice the blue words in comparison with the bright yellow, but it is not a big problem. Sometimes it depends upon the contrast on your computer. She liked the fact that it was attentive and animated, his writing style, the uniqueness of his fonts. She also liked Houston Taylor, first and foremost. I love the theme, easily readable, just like Justice, but in this case, focusing on Houston. His writing style does not beat around the bush, and you can tell right away that he does his research. The large amounts of white space right here keep the blog pleasing to the eye. What do I say? Give it air, white space, make it easily readable. What did we just see with Christie's evaluation of Katie Graham with all of those screenshots from the phone? Don't make it more difficult than it should be. The large amounts of white space keep the blog pleasing to the eye, along with the definition of the graphics. This blog overall has a very modern feel that I think is really nice. And that was from 4 years ago. What you're going to be doing by class time on Tuesday is looking at some of the blogs of your classmates. You can focus on one person, you can focus on more than one, and the way that you go about evaluating your classmates can be very similar to what we just saw. I'm interested, as you're well aware, in positive feedback. positive constructive criticism. You don't necessarily have to go out of your way to say something is wrong and it needs to be corrected. For this particular assignment, I want you to focus on things that your classmates are doing well, understanding, as you saw with Kaylee Harrell, that experimentation with blog formats is always going to be a work in progress, as is the editing, which is why, as you're well aware by now, the score for those blogs, assignments 1 through 20, are never determined until all 20 assignments are completed, because these are entities unto themselves, scrolling through all your projects, looking to make sure that the writing, the spelling, the grammar, the syntax, the facts are all presented in such a way that it is easily understandable, it is readable, and other than the opinions, your opinion pieces, your views are not going to be found in any of them. So before we leave for today, one more bit of interactivity. We'll go back to where we started on Blackboard with the remaining recording sessions for the fall semester. This is in Ultra. We will be meeting, that's today. We will be meeting Tuesday of next week, and you'll probably be watching that at home, but I think it's important that we get through assignment 19, and then we'll take Tuesday after we return, and Thursday, the last 2 regularly scheduled days of the semester, to examine more about assignment 20, the wild card, and also take a good bit of time, both Tuesday of next week and all the way through the final regularly scheduled week of classes, to research what is appropriate for the final project on visual journalism. And I would appreciate it if you could either talk to me in person during class or send me an email to my Yahoo address, letting me know in advance the kinds of ideas or concepts that you are considering for that final project. And here at the bottom, the final exam time is going to be Wednesday at 2:10. It's not a requirement for anyone to be here, but I want to have one final exam session where we can look at the progress that you're making on the final projects. They do not have to be completed, as I've indicated on multiple occasions today, but let's just see where we are. In the same way that we'll be examining over the next couple of weeks what your cohorts in years gone by did for final projects on visual journalism, what are you thinking about? Doesn't have to be an assignment that's cast in stone right away, but I want all of you to maximize your respective journalistic creativity to come up with something that you think is going to be best reflective of your professionalism. Because whenever anyone clicks on your names on the website link, from top to bottom, the first thing that anyone sees is going to be that visual journalism project. And ideally, that's going to be the capstone of what you have learned in this course. This video should be available relatively shortly on the website. We will continue with more research with assignment 19, classmate blog critique, assignment 20, the wild card, and doing some preliminary research on your final visual journalism project on Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. As for MM 2003, reporting and writing for the mass media, keep up the good work. And that concludes the recording session for today.